We have a whole course on serving alcohol responsibly, but we just have a couple of slides here because there's a couple of questions on this test on serving alcohol responsibly. Now it's much more complicated than this, a lot more factors, so I almost hesitate to even have this, except I have to because I know there's some test questions on it. So in the first hour, these are just very ballpark. Small person, figure 1 to 2 drinks in the first hour. A medium-sized person, 2 to 3 drinks. A large person, 3 to 4 drinks. To slow the absorption of alcohol into your system, meaning to have it take longer to get into your bloodstream, which is what counts for your blood alcohol content that the cops are looking for. So if you want to slow that down and spread it over time, you can do that by providing food for your guests, such as fatty and high protein foods. Avoid things like popcorn, which would make them thirsty, so they would drink more. So nothing salty. Note this would delay the time before you would fail a road sobriety test. You know, my theory of life is you don't have to be the world's greatest anything. You just need to be better than the people that were there before you and the people that are there with you. So that's our intention for this class. We're not going to make you a sommelier. Most places don't even have a sommelier, and it's not really necessary in most circumstances. We are intending to make you smarter than you were yesterday. So that's what we want you to get out of the class. You know more than you did when you started. And that's what life's all about. Being smarter today than you were yesterday. You know more than 90% of the people who would be applying for the same job is what we want out of this course for you. You can provide a benefit to your employer, be that a restaurant, a general, or a caterer. Your boss loves dark chocolate and wine, and you took notes on a great pairing for him or her. And you can pass the test and impress a future employer or your current employer who's looking for somebody to take charge of the wine program, that the first 4 bullet points are true, that you know more than you did when you started, that you know more than 90% of the people at your workplace, that you can provide them with a benefit, and that you can do some wine pairings that'll please your boss and please your guests. I want you to have a sense of why the gentleman is swirling his glass, slurping his wine, and staring at the legs. You wouldn't suggest a red wine with a delicately flavored fish. If somebody wants it, you give it to them, but you wouldn't suggest it. Your people would make more tips if you knew something, anything, about 5 wines that you could suggest to your customers. You ask the waiter, well, what do you suggest? And the waiter says, well, I don't know, I don't drink wine. Well, they didn't ask you if you drink wine. You could learn 5 wines and have some suggestions. Well, what's popular here is this one. A lot of people get that and they love it. I don't drink wine myself, but based on what everybody tells me, here's what I would suggest for you. That's all you know. If you know that, you know more than most people. We're going to cover a lot of information. Keep that book. I thought it was a great book. That's why I picked it for this class. As I said, I put the 2 books together, so you have a piece of 2 books that we custom, that's what Pearson does, custom created our book. Lots of good information. Keep that book. You won't remember all this stuff, but when your boss wants something special, you can run to the book. So I believe everybody needs a little library, and if you do all of our certifications, you're going to have a nice library of stuff you need to know. So in the long term, if you remember 10% of it, that'll be good. What I want you to remember is the general concepts, knowing enough to realize there's answers found in your book as to what beverage you should serve with the meal you're planning. Take lots of notes. Things that interest you now will interest you later. So take your notes. Keep those notes. Relax, enjoy, learn, grow, stretch your mind. I'll cover all 80 questions in the class, so these slides will cover the 80 questions that we're going to ask you on the final exam, mixed in with a whole bunch of stuff we're not going to cover. So just understand we're going to cover, the test is intended to cover the things you actually need to know. So we're not trying to give you obscure questions and trick you. we're going to try to give you questions that would be helpful for you to remember down the road. And things like this are just good for general wine consumption. We're certainly not going to test you on how many liters Spain produces, but it's just good to have general information so you know where wines come from. When you go to the store, you know what to look for. And Italians must have good wines, and French because they're the leaders of the market. And maybe you didn't even think of Spanish wines, so they're twice as big as the U.S. and U.S. Then Argentina. Forecasted world production to 28 million liters. That's a lot of wine. The drinkers reverse who's one and who's two, so the French drink more than the Italians. Hard to imagine. Maybe because there's more of them. I'm not sure. I don't remember. The U.S. is in third, then Germany, and then Spain. So these are consumption. For the novice wine consumer, which would include me and 99% of the people that I know, there's 4 perspectives. One is there is no bad wine, kind of like a cruise. You know, they're all good. Some better, some worse, but they're all good. But it's not to say that a good wine can't go bad. Perspective number 2 is there's a wine for every purpose. Number 3 is the wine drinker's palate is the only one that matters. So which wine is the best depends on what you like. Even when you do the wine tours, that's what they say. Whatever wine you like. If you like red wine with fish, have it. If you like white wine with steak, have it. You know, whatever is good for you. Of course, that sells more wine, so they're kind of self-serving when they say that. But we all have different palates. Whatever works for you. And perspective number 4 is if you wouldn't drink it, don't use it for cooking. So crappy wine, oh, that's nasty. Let's put it in our food. No, you wouldn't put bad spices in your food. Don't put bad wine in. If you wouldn't drink it, don't cook with it. A study of 869 wine drinkers showed that 64% consider themselves novices. 44% are intimidated by wine lists. 66% desire more guidance. 50% would drink more if recommendations were given. And 49% would prefer a larger wine list. So, which brings me to the point that if you're on the wait staff, if you just learn something, anything, people, 50% would drink more wine. Where is profit coming from today? It's not coming from the food. It's coming from the beverage in a restaurant. So learn a little bit. Just study a little bit. Whether you drink wine, you don't drink wine, whatever you like, reds only, learn a couple of reds, couple of whites, and you'll be good to go. Data from the study of 869 wine drinkers was according to the Russell Research, a New York-based consulting firm, and that was written up in Nation's Restaurant News. Wine can be divided into 3 categories. One would be table wine, which is made to be drunk at the table with meals, just your standard every night what you're going to have with your meal. The alcohol content for those is generally 8 to 15%. Sparkling wine like champagne consists of a table wine as the base with large amounts of CO2 for carbonation. Typically it contains between 10% and 13% alcohol. And fortified wines, which consist of table wines as the base with additional alcohol added in the form of a distilled spirit, often an unaged brandy, which you would add to the wine, and that's called fortified, and it would be between 17 and 22% alcohol. It's not uncommon, including me, that people buy based on the look of the bottle. My thought is if they spent that much time and money to develop a beautiful bottle, beautiful label, then probably the wine is good too. It's like a restaurant, right? If the bathroom's clean, you assume the kitchen is clean. If the label looks really sharp, I would think the winery would look really sharp. So let's look at what pieces there are on a wine label. The 5 most significant pieces on the wine label are the producer. You can see Jacques Guindon down at the bottom there. He's the producer. You can see the grape variety, Malvoisie, Malvasia. So, where's Malvasia? Oh, right there in the middle. The origin of the grapes, Coteau de Ascentis, that's where the grapes came from. The appellation de origine, meaning the controlled designation of the origin. Where did those grapes come from? And the vintage year, none is listed, meaning what? Means didn't have a year, means a mixture of years. And an indication of the quality, which is vin de qualité supérieure. So within their system, that has a meaning, and you'd have to look that up based on perhaps that country or that region. But it sounds good. Vin, wine de qualité supérieure. On this label, you can see the winemaker or the winery, the company or firm that made the wine, or the wine's trademark name, which would be Paul Jaboulet Arnay, something like that. You would see the appellation, the geographic location where the grapes for this wine were grown. This may be as broad as California or as narrow as a specific vineyard like Trittenheimer Alterschen. So there you see it's La Chapelle. And the vintage, this is the year in which the grapes were harvested, not the year in which the wine was bottled, which for some wine might be years later when it's actually bottled. So that's the year it was harvested. So let's discuss what it is that I'm not going to make you, which is a sommelier. The sommelier, or wine steward, specializes in all aspects of wine service. They'd be associated with high-end restaurants where they contribute value and prestige to the customer's wine purchases, meaning you can charge more if you have a sommelier on board, as they make the wine sound like it's worth more, right? They got all the fancy words, and they can just spark it up, and they're so passionate about what they do that the customer is going to say, you know what, I'll try some of that. They would suggest the pairing of food with a particular wine, sometimes printed on the menu, and with the guest's input decide what would work best for them. Does the guest like a sweeter or a drier wine, as an example? What is the guest ordering? So the sommelier would provide advice. Well, what are you going to have tonight? Well, let me suggest this, and give it some fruity, woody, oaky, whatever flavor they get a sense the customer would like to hear, and they would recommend that type of wine. So back to the top, when you say all aspects of wine service, that means they would be involved in putting the wine list together, in ordering the wine, in traveling to Europe and seeing what's the latest and greatest trends in wines and all that.